From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. Me, I'm Ken Neves.
And me, I'm Jen Landa.
And me, I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And we're here to discuss Star Wars news, or Star Wars bleeps, blurps of news, not like headlines, like little drips. It's not a active Star Wars news cycle, but we have a couple things we're going to dive into. Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2 comments last week. We mentioned it. We're going to dive in. Also, some video game news, and we always love taking a look back at video games that are coming back into our lives. Maybe. We'll get to all that as we do our Star Wars news coverage. But first, reminding you that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles and growing to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Anything you can get sound on that can play files. That's what I'm thinking. We are recommending a book, Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher. We love that book around here. Download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audio book. We'll get to some life adventures, but Joseph, we got the ask, and you are on. Well, I was going to say unfamiliar territory. You're very familiar with your broadcast studio right now. What's our ask?
We'll get to the asks, and then I'll explain the weird background. So our ask continues to be about Patreon. Thank you for everyone who has supported us on there. It is the biggest thing that keeps us going, so I always want to pay lots of attention to it. We've had a goal for a couple weeks now to get up to 415 paid patrons on Patreon. We're, as of this recording, at 408, so we're getting very, very close. And once we reach 415, we will do a special patron-only live stream. We keep calling it a private live stream, but then it sounds like we're going to do something weird. We're not. We're just going to have fun with patrons. Anyway, so check it out if you'd like. And also, please follow us on Blue Sky and Threads. We are no longer on X. So if you'd like to keep up with us, you can find us Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, all those places. So those are the asks.
All those places indeed. So, yeah, Audible, Ask Adventures. That's our AAA beginning to the broadcast. Jen, what are your Star Wars and or life adventures that you'd like to share with us today?
For a moment, I thought you said Andor life adventures.
Andor.
Well,
I was arrested. Yeah.
hello.
I just wanted Pizzos.
Not much. I'm in deep with the miniature world dioramas. I'm searching the Reddit. So I was searching the Reddits of, I don't know what the official thing is called. But anyways, it's a diorama Reddit threads. And I was scrolling through and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, Star Wars found me there. It was a Bad Batch diorama that somebody had created. It was so cool. I don't know how big the figures were. They looked like they were about this size. I don't know. But they had created a little diorama for each character, different terrain, really, really cool looking. And it was a moment where I'm like, hey, and it had a huge amount of response, but it was nice to see Star Wars finding me in this new fandom that I'm now a part of, I guess.
Finding
That's
you,
really cool.
following you.
Following me, stalking me. Star Wars is like, yeah.
Hey.
Tapping on the window. I'm still here.
Do you think Wrecker would like the miniatures?
I think Wrecker would appreciate it. I could see him grabbing it. Wow, what's this?
Accidentally crushing it in his giant hands.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
all I got. That's all I got.
No, that's good.
That's plenty.
Yeah, that's funny. Mine's short and to the point. Still going through this. What ends up being a long process of going into your storage shed, cataloging your Star Wars figures and other figures. I have a lot of 25th anniversary G.I. Joe figures, if anyone's interested. And then you mark it down. And then you have a potential buyer, and then you got to go back out and pull it all back out of the shed. Maybe look at pricing, and then the memories come rushing back. And I'm reminding myself that this isn't permanent. I'm selling these things for both maybe financial reasons, but also space reasons. It's not emotional reasons. I'm not jettisoning Star Wars from my life. I just got to make these decisions on merch. And as I said before in a Star Wars Adventures segment on the show, you're just kind of going through the memories of when you tracked them down and when I remember driving to that Walgreens to get General Veers. What a day that was. And I've set a goal for myself of, these can be purchased again. You can go to a convention. And I was remembering, Joseph, some of our greatest Star Wars memories in the last couple of years are you and me, or Brian Ward at times joining us, Mark Ellis on other times, just wandering convention floors, maybe, hopefully, a drink in hand, and finding figures and going, oh, I can get that, or oh, I need that, or oh, remember when I first got that. And so I'm gonna put that on my list to do down the line to re-experience that.
That's great, because I think a big part of it is the circle of desire and satisfaction. A big part of it is thinking like, man, I like to go to this convention. I'd love to find that Veers. That's a part of, I think, the fun of collecting is the desire and the hunt, and then it makes it even more thrilling and even a bigger memory when Veers comes back into your life.
Yeah, and it's good. And one of our longtime ForceCenter listeners, Dean Doug, is the one who's maybe going to be purchasing some for me right now, and he wanted a lot of the Han Solo ones, and that's like, oh, do I really want to? Yeah, okay, I got to do this. But it's been a lot of fun tracing Han's face on figures this week as I put them in boxes. They almost got it. They got it. Oh,
Nice. Yeah, yeah, pretty good.
So that's my life. That's my life. You, sir, though, have traveled again, as I mentioned, and you're broadcasting from a place of history.
Yeah. So if anybody's watching on YouTube, I haven't been kidnapped or anything. This is one of my childhood bedrooms in my father's house in Minneapolis. Moved around to a couple different bedrooms. Just talking to Ken as we started. I first slept in this room in 1987. So it was a sad time for Star Wars in this room. This is when Star Wars had sort of disappeared, and would it ever come back in any way, shape, or form? And then I think I found a Starlog magazine celebrating the 10th anniversary, and that was all the Star Wars that I could have in 1987. Yeah. But I'm here working away on that film that I'm trying to get made, doing all sorts of pre-production. My dad's helping me build some flats. I'm having auditions. I'm buying stuff and meeting people and all sorts of stuff. So that is pretty much the entirety of my adventure. Star Wars always finds me, though. We went to the hardware store to buy a new blade for a saw, and there was in the Halloween section, it had a bunch of skulls and then like a Grogu planter, for Halloween. Yeah. Spooky.
So you made me think of one quick look. Grace and I were watching there's a documentary series out there on Hulu called Out There, Crimes of the Paranormal, which is kind of I'd say it's almost a debunking series on, hey, here's these things that people might think are paranormal, but they're not. One of them was this kind of heinous set of crimes. And they cut to like a witness family to interview them. And there's a giant Grogu Christmas decoration that's one of those blow up kind of air dolls. And then we now go to the serious murder. Hey, there's Grogu.
Nice. Star Wars finds you everywhere.
Joseph, I love that room. That it is so beautifully, the color scheme and the wood. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, right. The wallpapers. This is the calmest of the wallpapers in these bedrooms. Yeah. So I don't want my dad to ever take this down. It's weird flowers, kind of golden yellow flowers on flowers. There's a weird brown flower design in the back room. In the middle room, sadly, my dad did take the wallpaper down. But in the 70s, somebody made that let's celebrate the bicentennial of America. So it had all like bright red and white and blue and like drummers marching up and down. It was like a clown was celebrating America. It was terrifying and beautiful. So I'm mad he took it down.
Wow. Absolutely love that. I thought you were gonna. I have a bicentennial coin collection, so my grandma had provided for me upon birth in that year. I was before we get into the news, behind you, it looks like you got like hooks for hats or jackets or something. But on camera, for those watching, it looks like you have a series of like awards, like speech tournaments or best attendance. I was like, oh, okay. Oh wait, no, it's probably a jacket thing. But
best place to hang your coat because it's already bleeping cold here.
Already? Oh man, I'm in a beanie again because it's 72. We're freezing out here in LA. Well, we're going to get into our Star Wars news section. As I said up top, we are going to be looking a little bit deeper into the headlines that went around of Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2. But really, it's just about Ewan McGregor wanting more Kenobi storytelling, or is he dropping hints, Oh, here we go. This story emerged last week, and we mentioned it in passing in our episode discussion of the bigger Disney era. But we're going to dive in, like I said, while speaking at LA Comic-Con the first weekend of October. Ewan McGregor was asked by the panel host if there was anything in the Star Wars universe that he would like to do that he hasn't done yet. Man, that might be a leading question and a great one. The crowd started reacting, which was great. And he playfully said, Obi-Wan Season 2. The crowd cheered. And then my favorite part of it, some people just booed directly to Ewan.
And he called him out on it, right?
He did. He actually eventually just goes, that guy doesn't want it. Which
name and shame. There you go.
Yeah, I wanted some really good crowd work to erupt right then. But then you went into some ideas. He talked about wanting to wear the Clone Wars armor, big applause, going back to spend more time with Hayden, and said that they were hoping, and then he kind of said, well, actually exploring more ideas. That sentence, I will admit, is pretty juicy. He mentioned exploring stories that bridge the gap between the end of the series and A New Hope. But let's first be detectives. I want to look at this as a news story. Joseph, Jennifer, is Ewan being just cheeky? Is this a backdoor announcement of actual development or discussions, or should we all just maybe not get our news from actor con appearances, Jen? What do you think?
You know, it's really funny because at first I'm like, oh, there's nothing here. I'm glad I watched the video clip because it really is very telling. He's being playful. He's joking around. He's calling people out. He's just kind of riffing and teasing a little bit, right? Like, yeah, of course, I'd love to wear the Clone Wars armor, right? But then at the end was where I was like, oh, gotcha. It was a moment where he slipped and you can see it in his face. He's like, well, we're definitely hoping. And he stopped himself and was, well, exploring. And he like looked off to the side a little bit. I was like, oh, is there a PR person over there? It just was a slight moment. Not that anything's happening, but that they are hoping. And maybe there's some talks. And that was a moment where I was like, oh, there's some truth there.
Fascinating stuff there. I'll say this. We all three have experience working either cons ourselves or appearing on things or being in the rooms or knowing people who host. And last year, LA Comic-Con, last December, I hosted an Ahsoka themed panel with all the hair, makeup, everyone, all the designers, and we couldn't talk about Ahsoka. And it wasn't an official Lucasfilm panel, but they had to run everything by Lucasfilm, and the restrictions were many. So Ewan's a wild card, Joseph. He's a wild card. He'll get on that motorcycle and drive to South America if he wants right now. And I'm just wondering if he maybe bucked some rules here.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't even know about rules. I totally agree with you, Jennifer, of the I feel exploring is a much more substantive word than hoping.
Yeah.
So it almost felt like he corrected to be more aggressive. But it felt like he did correct. Totally agree with the whole arc of that is from cheeky to like, hey, do you want to see me in the clone armor? But seriously, I want to do this. Like, it was a real change in tone that I think he's clearly enjoying the convention. He's clearly just embracing Star Wars a lot more. He was playing that room like a fiddle, right? We've seen people do every kind of Star Wars thing from what Ewan did to like, I know what fans like and I know what they want to hear and I'm going to get a cheer for fun to, poor actors like, oh, I'm overwhelmed by this fan energy. And he's now in that place of like, I know exactly what this is. I chose to be here. Let's put this in context, right? This is LA Comic-Con where he is selling autographs and photos. There's no industry pressure for him to be here. He could be off spending time with his kids. He chose to be here. I'm sure the money is nice, but also I think he's probably going to make his mortgage. The man chose to be there.
Right.
He's not promoting anything unless this is the angle. So he's choosing to be here because I think he's in this Star Wars mode. He's enjoying it. His whole family's in Star Wars, and he's enjoying it. So I think there's this great fun of like all cheeky play, and then I totally agree with you both. The dead serious. I think it's such a fascinating change from when the first season of Kenobi was finally announced. He went on all these interviews and said, people kept asking me about it, and we were kind of talking about it, but I didn't want to talk about it publicly because I didn't want to make it look like I was begging for a job. He said that exact quote again and again. I didn't want to make it look like I was begging for a job. And now he has done a complete 180 where he's like, when I go to Chipotle and order my burrito, I tell them I want a Kenobi season 2. Like, he is doing the exact thing he said he didn't want to do. He must have enjoyed it that much where he's like, yeah, sorry, I'm going on. The other thing I'll say very quickly is I think he is in a different position than some actors. He is, I think, one of the few true movie television stars onto themselves that we have in this day and age. I think he commands a lot of power, and I think that he has the power to say, I want a meeting with Uncle Bob. I know you don't want to do this, but I'm really pressuring. And, other actors can't do that. Sabine can't kick the door in and give me a Sabine show. Ewan can kick the door in and have hopeful explorations.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The reaction to, say, a hair and makeup person, as talented as they might be, to doing that on a panel versus Ewan is clearly going to be different. I thought you were going to say, Joseph, that you're like, sorry, I'm hungry. I love that Chipotle came into this. I'll have pico de gallo and Kenobi season 2. I'm with you both. Just quick thoughts on it for myself. Just I'm with you too, Jen, where I almost roll my eyes in a grumpy fashion. I'm like, it's just another con thing. Here we go. And then I watch the clip and you're like, all right. Either, like you're saying, Joseph, he knows he can get away with it and he's pushing and he wants it and he's in, because some stuff here we're going to discuss isn't necessarily new. I still believe the streaming side is, in flux and under budget constraints and all these things going on outside of the acolyte of all, just the business overall, as we've said over and over and over again on the show. So I think it still might be in a campaign mode. And who knows, hey, Kathy, can we grab lunch? I have some things I want to explore over lunch in terms of Kenobi stuff. It's all possible. But I'll say this, it just was so fun to watch because he's clearly passionate about it. And that's a big thing. And that's a new story for me, Yeah. Kenobi.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, Kenobi wants to Kenobi.
Kenobi wants to Kenobi. Yeah, I was just going to clarify from my rambling. I don't think this is an announcement. I don't think I don't think Disney is saying anything. I think the revelation is that he wants this and is talking to them. So much like with that Sean Levy, like, the news is a person wants a job.
Yeah, indeed. We've talked many times about what would be in a second season of Kenobi, and I'm sure we'll talk about it here again. But in terms of plot, story-wise, what we might want. Continuing Reva's storyline comes up. The Path as a big one. More with Qui-Gon, of course. That would be. I'd take 6 episodes of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan just sitting chatting. Or reuniting with Jar Jar Binks and just drinking down at the canteen and discussing memories would work for me. Jar Jar could have a beard or not, doesn't matter to me. Ewan's comments about bridging the gap are not necessarily new. I've heard him say that before. I can't remember exactly, but we've discussed that here. It makes some sense. But I got to say, the energy for the Clone Wars armor is kind of new. I mean, just to see it. And this is someone who, I think it was Alex and Molly were talking about it, who, like, just a couple years ago was like, what's the Clone? I haven't watched that series. What is that? Like, kind of unaware of it to being fully aware of it. And that's kind of exciting. So I wanted to maybe talk about that in more detail. Joseph, what's your reaction to the idea of going back? I'll say going back because they can get to that in many different kind of ways. But going back to the Clone Wars with Kenobi in some fashion with Ewan McGregor in the armor.
Yeah, no, purely as a fan, I would just love it. I think it does create that great connective tissue between the live action and the animation and makes it even more all one and the same. I deeply love the Clone Wars. I think, so there's I'd love to see him in the armor. I also think it's a great way to pair him and Hayden, because I don't need Kenobi and Vader to face off again. I wouldn't mind if Vader had a parallel story to Kenobi and maybe even they sensed one another or something, but I don't need them to have another standoff. So having it, flashbacks or alternate reality of Hayden and Ewan together in the Clone Wars armor would be absolutely great. It's also fun for me because it is about Ewan's enthusiasm of, I'm sure he sat down and watched the Ahsoka show that his wife and his buddy Hayden were in. And this to me feels like the Ewan that we've seen in interviews forever, who is excited about a lightsaber, who does love motorcycle trips, who likes telling fun stories, where he's just sitting on the couch going, look at that. Look at what Hayden got.
Totally.
I want to wear that. Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, just him texting Hayden like, oh, man, I want to do that. I'm going to do that. There's a lot of ways to do it. I agree with you. I don't necessarily need any more Vader and Kenobi interacting one-on-one, sensing. There's ways to do it. This is why I'm not on a fan panel giving studios ideas for stories. But Jen, one of the reasons I know you love the Acolyte series, among many, is some of the new territory it got to. Outside of, Kenobi's important. We're going to talk about Kenobi as a character, but going back to the Clone Wars or mining that for more story, what's your thoughts on that and just Ewan's excitement for clone armor?
Yeah, I think that it would be fun to see in a flashback scene, kind of similar to what we saw with Ahsoka. Just a scene or a couple scenes, I think, is all we need. Just because if it's a whole series around it, in terms of live action, the de-aging thing, I don't know. I don't know if it would really quite work for me. And I feel like it's okay to leave the Clone Wars in its beautiful little, I don't want to say time capsule, but it's like animated time capsule, if you will. I think that that's okay. Maybe picking some things out would be fun. It is interesting to me that he just was like, just having fun. And it's like a wish list. And even though he is doing a con, LA Comic-Con, not San Diego, LA Comic-Con, which is smaller. And back in the day, this would have been kind of death for an actor, right? It would have been like, oh, he's lower tier, right? Like he's at it, but now it's not that at all. And he still has tremendous power in the industry, where if he's like, do you want to see me in the Clone Wars armor? And the crowd goes wild, Lucasfilm might be like, wow, this could work. Fans want it. Fans have power. He has power. I could see this absolutely happening. Just kind of crazy.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead, Ken.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I totally agree with you. I think a full Clone Wars series, that does feel like, why exactly are we telling that story? But depending on what the story could be for a season 2, if there is anything with kind of where we left off with Obi-Wan needing to train with Qui-Gon to, center himself and maybe begin the process of becoming one with the Force, and that there's lots of reasons for him to think back on past mistakes. Look at his Clone Wars era in a new light. Have some strange Force vision of what if I left it all and went off with Satine? What if Anakin didn't turn and like those memes you draw? I was Uncle Obi-Wan, and I think there's lots of reasons to have the character reflect and have it not even be a flashback to a thing that really happened, but a flashback to that era.
Yeah, absolutely. Which kind of leads to the next point of the discussion here. What would be the value of continuing to tell stories about the legend of Kenobi and his place in the Star Wars story, which is big, Jennifer? This isn't necessarily just about a season 2, but continuing with that character played by this guy. What's the value for you?
I think that it's a very difficult note to hit, which is being able to portray a positive portrayal of a Jedi who also has flaws, regrets. People did not like that with Luke in The Last Jedi. People definitely did not like what they got, some people, with the Acolyte. Ewan McGregor, his portrayal of Obi-Wan, it really is a beautiful performance in that people like seeing that. He does it very, very well. He is still a hero. And I think that that's kind of important right now, I think. I think that could be necessary, yeah.
I want to hear your thoughts, Joseph, sooner than later here. But Jen, you just made me think, it is kind of weird. There's all these reactions to Jedi. And when Jedis have a little bit of stumbles, and they're all over the place, from not my Luke to, yes, tear down these space cops, break them. I want to see them gone. It's fascinating. And sometimes it can get frustrating as a fan, depending on which side is loud or whatever. But it is interesting that the center of this series is these space laser sword wielding wizards. So, Joseph, your thoughts on the value of continuing the Kenobi story?
Yeah, I think Jennifer's got a great point in that people do react to flawed and sometimes mopey Obi-Wan better. And I think part of that is because our relationship with him has always been, we know where he ends, right? If we were watching The Acolyte and we knew that by the end, Osha may find their way back together again, then we would have this sort of different emotional reaction to it. I think more specifically, if we had known that Indara ends up actually living and being one of the greatest Jedi ever, and now we're just seeing the moments where she effed up, that's in different emotional relationship. And same thing with Luke, where it's the huge contrast of a lot of people imagined him from the books or this other way, and now here he is being more depressed than we thought. So Kenobi does have a license to be bummed out, but I think what's most exciting to me about a season 2 is I'm sure there'd still be elements of that. There has to be for his conflict, but I think it could be a really positive Jedi story, because I think he ended that one, the first season, not at I'm completely healed. He ended it, I think, open to, oh, I can still be a Jedi. I still have a mission. It's to, care for Luke, but to care for it in the right way. In order to care for Luke, I need to get right with myself. So I'm going to go off with Qui-Gon and kind of get right with myself. So it's almost like he kind of started this process. So for me, a dream season 2 would certainly have conflict and some bummed out Kenobi, but it would be about this great feeling of, I have accepted that being a Jedi in the Order, the way it existed, isn't the only way to be a Jedi. I reclaimed being a Jedi. I redefined for myself what being a Jedi was. Reva managed to do it too. And now I'm going to really reflect on, how can I be a good Jedi, a good person, while still, watching over Luke and paying attention to my mission and all that. And it could be really a fun, positive Jedi story, which I think I would welcome right now.
Yeah, there's some great value in the idea of he's emerged at the end of season 2, or season 1. He's emerged through that tunnel of his life, is that Terrace Anube tunnel that you discussed so well. Just like he's walking through, and he emerges in the other side of it, changed and different, and accepts the ending and hello there and all that stuff. I love of all right, if I'm doing this, not just protecting this kid, but passing some stuff on. What's that stuff? And what do I want that be? Who am I now in this world? I love what you're saying about it's not necessarily redefining the Jedi Order, because that doesn't exist anymore, but just going back to the concept of Jedi, pass it on. And that's where I think going back to the Clone Wars in small doses, I agree with it. And Jen, you talked about the DH, and he mentioned it in the panel too, and saying, what did he say? I'll spend weeks in those dots if I have to.
I'll do it.
But shout out to James Arnold Taylor and Matt Lanter for what they were able to bring to those characters in that series. Ashley Eckstein as well, we know with Ahsoka, but to have Ewan take a big chomp out of that part of Kenobi's life, and what did I do during that time that was wrong? What did I do that was good? I don't need to be full reflection. I think we got a lot of that in season 1, but I like what you're saying. There's great value, and we are now carrying it forward, because the generational exchange and generational change that we talk about that's essential to Star Wars is Kenobi, right? In A New Hope. He's the guy going, yep, I'm going to pass down the past to you. What does that truly mean? I think that's the big gap for me that I'd love to see bridged, as Ewan says. So, we like what the series explored, both thematically and story-wise. We can dive in deeper. You can go look at our reviews. And were there budget issues? Was it made during a weird time in the world? Yes, it was. There's all those things. We really love what was put forth in that series. But all right, Jen, I want to play fair. What could be the downside of continuing to tell more Obi-Wan Kenobi stories from the end of this series, season 1, and A New Hope? Mind you, we got that great, one of the best Star Wars episodes ever of Rebels, the Twin Sons episode. That's there. But what could you see as a possible downside?
Keeping track of all the different canon things and Star Wars history. I think it would be important to focus on the path, to focus on newer characters who are parallel to the story. I think it starts to get a little crowded for me personally. And then I know I'm not the only one who might be like, well, if this happened, then how is this character not here in A New Hope and blah, blah, blah. Right. So I think it's a little tricky. But if they kept it like close, adjacent, I think that would be all right. New characters is the key.
What's your testing the temperature here, Jen, of you're obviously, I know, hey, a good what if question that could change things and everything. But they're the number one criticism, I think, of Kenobi that I get face to face from good faith fans, by the way. I want to make sure I'm clear about that. These aren't the people just wanting to ruin your day. These are the people like, Kenobi didn't leave Tatooine. I didn't like the young Leia stuff. The destroys canon stuff. We didn't get to discuss that as much with you on a weekly basis, if I recall. Does that factor in some of the stuff you're saying going forward? The too crowded angle?
I mean, a little.
Mm-hmm.
A little. I don't know. Yeah. I really, I don't want to say I struggle with it, but it does make me wonder where some of these characters are, which is just natural. It's just natural.
I think it's natural, yeah.
Yeah, but we know that he has lots of adventures. We know that things have been happening, right? It's not like nothing happens between the between the movies. Yeah, I don't know. I got to think about that more.
No, it's natural. Look, because I still I get the explanation completely works for me, but I'm still like, God, where were those U-wings on Endor? We could have used those U-wings from Rogue One. Like, where are they? And I know they didn't exist in 1983, and it's just when you're deep into the story, and that's why I want to highlight that I really truly think it's a good faith discussion. I understand when someone at a party says, I just didn't like that they took Kenobi off Tatooine. That's totally fine, because I thought he spent his entire life there between Sith and New Hope, but he didn't, and I think that's a fair thing to go. All right, but he didn't. How are we gonna? Let's see what that story does, and I think I personally came down to really liking what it did, and really loving the inclusion of young Leia and generational change with her and Bail and Brea. So, but I think you're right. Too crowded is the phrase that stood out to me, Jen. Where as if you move it even 1 year closer to A New Hope, or again to the third season of Rebels. You got to be even more careful, which is why I would not want it, like you just said, Joseph, I would not want it to be another round with Vader. I think I'm good with that. Would it still factor in? But I think he got to a place of peace. And now I think I'm ready to be like, all right, but again, if they say, hey, there was one more, all right, I'm gonna follow out that string with you as storytellers. But from the end of season 1 to Vader doing the whole, I sense something, Tarkin, I got to go deal with something. Like, I'm ready to have that be that, but I'll explore more, because I would have been fine with it being 19 years, but I love where they came down on it. As has been documented, I think Pablo Hidalgo said George liked this idea. This is perhaps I hear tell one of his favorite things, so I like exploring it. But yeah, too crowded, Joseph, is kind of where my only one big fear kind of lays.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't want it to be too close to A New Hope. I think, when Ewan says bridging the gap, to me that means like room for stories, not a second season should end on, Kenobi's head coming up of Luke's in trouble, and I got to go get him from the Tusken Raiders, that kind of thing. I think as much as it can be something new would be great. I think this sort of idea of, hey, there's lots of open space and there's stuff that you didn't know. That's always challenging in the moment for fans. And then as time goes on and people either age or come to it new, they just don't care. I mean, no fan who grew up with the Clone Wars is up in arms because Anakin didn't have an apprentice, period, right?
Right.
That was new and just, hey, information you didn't know. Really, really amazing, huge part of Anakin's life that you just didn't hear about in the movies.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that I would like to see. I don't need him to run into Maul. I wouldn't mind if he ran into Asajj or whatever, or bumped into Hondo or whatever. But I don't need him to face, one of the big characters of his life. I would love it if you're like, hey, did you know that Obi-Wan had this incredibly wild adventure? Like, somebody came to him for help and he was torn about doing it, but he wanted to be a Jedi, but he was in the middle of doing this Force spirit training where he was having to look into his soul, and he was basically kind of using the Force to kind of do what Yoda basically does, is a weird acid trips of the soul in the Clone Wars. You put that stuff on screen, that's new, it's different, it's spiritual, it's tied to the character, it's tied to the themes of Star Wars. And I think the more new it is, the easier that is for the people who are just kind of like, but he just sat there on Tatooine. Why does he got to keep going places? Why do you got to keep running into Vader and Maul and rehashing? I think the more you make it a new and exciting story, the more palatable it is to still keep telling stories about this character.
Yeah, no, I like it. I agree with you. And I think you're so right about the each generation, they'll have their own problems down the line, right?
Mhm.
They'll have their own. Wait, no, that didn't happen in the Clone Wars because I watched the Clone Wars, and it's, I think, like you said, Jen, it's just a natural reaction sometimes
Mhm.
of, a character pops up. I mean, how many times? I mean, look, Grogu pops up, and we're all like, oh, it's such a shame Kylo Ren's going to chop him in two one day. That's not necessarily going to happen, right? That's not necessarily where it ends up. I think it's natural to react to that as well. No, I love what you say. Though I got to say this, and Jen, I don't know what you think about this. I know what you said, Joseph, that you wouldn't necessarily need this or want this. But if the series ended with Kenobi just kind of putting on his hood, slowly walking, and you're not sure what he's doing, and then he just lets out a big crat dragon call. Jen, would you approve of that? New Hope connection?
Oh, that would actually be kind of amazing. It would be so on the nose. I think it would actually work. I kind of love it.
Yeah.
The most recent, the last George tweak on that crate call is pretty wild. It's a hell of a way to end the show.
Just you're just like, whoa, here we go. I'd be ready for it. I mean, I like that. Is it slightly cheesy? Does it make me think of that meme that happened around the Kenobi time of smash cut to like a 2007 song or a 2000 Jimmy Eat World song? Yeah, it does. I want that. Nearly 50 years later, a mentor passing the torch in a morality play remains central to the Skywalker saga, Star Wars overall. We love Kenobi around here, Joseph. No secret, it's one of your guys, one of your characters that means a lot, and we're right there with you. But I look at it now, 2024. What is the importance and purpose of Obi-Wan Kenobi to us now? Both then, when we first met him, along the way, and now, as we could get more storytelling, or might not. Where does his legacy lie, Joseph?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I like that we framed this question of like thinking through it in big picture. What does he mean to the galaxy, to the world, as a pop culture in fantasy story icon, but also just for me. And I think when I think about my own journey, when I first slept in this bedroom in 1987, he was an old wise man. And that was something that to me was sort of foreign. Would I ever get old enough to be, centered, wise, have anybody else want to hear my wisdom, all that? And then, I got the specific treat of being around the same age as Ewan, a little younger, but then seeing this person who is a mentor, impossibly wise and someone I could never be, seeing him as a young, brash man who makes mistakes. And then seeing him as somebody who's like, well, I wasn't quite ready to be an adult, but now I got to try. And now I'm a pretty seasoned adult. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Oh, I made horrible mistakes. And now I have to go through a horrible. To me, it's fascinating to watch his character the way I think we all experience mentors is they are other than us. We could never be that accomplished and wise. And with Obi-Wan, we've got to watch this character grow and grow and grow to become that. I think the same way we all grow and grow and grow and learn that we could someday become the mentor as well.
Well said. Really love all that stuff there, Jen. Go back to the early '80s when we all met him, and now, what's your thoughts on Kenobi and his legacy and purpose?
He never spoke to me in the way that Yoda spoke to me. However, I always appreciated his wisdom. What I think I loved about Ewan McGregor was that he really made the character more real, more relatable, fallible. And then James Arnold Taylor, his performance gave warmth, kindness. So it's like all these three actors really shaped this character to make the character last for as long as he has. I mean, he has tremendous staying power at different points of his life. And now looking at Alec Guinness's performance, I love it. It's just, he has a warmth that I think when I was a kid, I didn't quite understand or appreciate. But he is one of the backbones of Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars is Kenobi, along with some other characters like Luke and Leia and Vader.
He is. I remember during the that 2015 era where we're all had our Rey theories and a ton of theories. It was I do give, whether intentional or not, JJ's Force Awakens did bring in. I know the mystery box thing gets misused and misunderstood, but just it was fun to have more theories in Star Wars than we had in the past. We were playing around with it, and that was kind of the sign of the times. And I think things changed, and it wasn't always going to be what people thought in terms of theories. But I love that Kenobi's name was out there as a possible connection, and might have been, right? And I think that helped. I never thought Kenobi was less than or not important. He's one of my favorite characters too, but like that just made he's in that as well. He's an all-star. He's on the starting lineup, so he might be in a potential theory thing. Then I'm with you too. It's hard, for us again. We always like to own our starting points, and we celebrate so many different starting points in Star Wars for fandoms. But early '80s for me, meeting this guy, he did represent history. He did represent this mysterious past, the Clone Wars. How many times on the show have I mentioned? I just love Alec Guinness's pauses and his looks are 25 years of storytelling. And that we've been able to go back to that, and including his sense of humor, his cheekiness, his ability to half-truth his way through some situations. I love it. And as it's changed over the years, you're right. I mean, I'm thinking back to even 99 and 02 and 05. Ewan McGregor turned him into a bit of an action star for me in a good way. He's I've always kind of looked at him as a poster child for the Jedi Order in that time. But what's interesting about that, and I've never meant that in a snarky way, but he's doing right, and the Order collapses around him for a lot of reasons, and some of them he's a part of, and some of them you both said he's fallible, but Ewan made him into that Jedi Knight of old that I still kind of look to. He's a morality through line, almost a moral through line to going forward in the storytelling. Or I want to check in with him, and that's. Again, why I love the Kenobi series so much, to have him kind of be in his cups about what happened and then kind of come through with that. And I'm glad you mentioned James Arnold Taylor, Jen, as we've mentioned him before. We have a long interview a couple years ago here on the channel. He added some layers, like the whole Duchess Satine stuff, and just, finding out, like, you didn't know I was in love once? Like, it brought some warmth and reality to this poster child for the Jedi Order, which is, when you call someone that's not necessarily fair to them. And James was able to bring that kind of reality in the layers to that character. So I love all this stuff. Love his purpose.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on Kenobi? Any final thoughts on Ewan McGregor? Any thoughts on his motorcycle in South America, Jen? What's your Kenobi of it all?
What it must be like to be Ewan McGregor, having the world in the palm of your hand.
Cool.
But I will say, just one random thought, but that Comic-Con crowd was rowdy. I was like, but that's what I mentioned a few episodes back about how he's a star. Like, he was not ruffled or thrown by people yelling at him. He just was like, I don't know. He's just a guy that, like, you could imagine hanging out at a pub, and just like being able to just chat with anyone. And I really appreciate that he just was just being amongst the fans, the rowdy fans that we are sometimes, shouting and booing.
Yeah.
Why are you at this panel if you didn't like Kenobi season 1?
Question for the ages, indeed. No, I really agree with you on that too. Of not rattled, doing crowd work, rolling with the punches. A lot of fun to see him do it, and it's just like he is a cool cat. He's always been a cool cat. Part of him showing up in Phantom Menace was like, oh wow, they got a real cool cat to come in and play Obi-Wan. I'd chomp my gum and go bleep if I was Rick McCallum too. So. I love that there, and at the end of the day, for me, if we're talking about, I don't even want to predict about will season 2 happen. I kind of want something because I'm not done having Ewan around Star Wars with this kind of smile on his face, Joseph.
I totally agree. I think the character of Obi-Wan, from Alec Guinness to James Arnold Taylor, part of it is that they've always had a lot of life. They are the poster Jedi because they just keep their heads down and do their job. They're pretty centered on, like, I'm a Jedi and I'm supposed to help people, and every once in a while I get a little snarky in that, but they seem like every iteration of Obi-Wan Kenobi is kind of like charming and enjoying in life. And even in season 1, when he was depressed as hell, he was still charming. Like, that's a depressed man I want to hang out with. And I think it's always been there in every iteration, but I think Ewan has really brought that great charm and that great interest and zest for life. And I would really love to see more of the character, and I would love to see more of Ewan as the character. And I know no matter what, some people it's not going to be what they want, but to quote Leia, it's now or never. He's not going to be this age forever. And that's one of the other reasons that I would really like it.
Yeah, what he's mid-50s now, right? Maybe
Yeah.
early, we're gonna reach that weird point in time where we'll be like, "Oh, did you know Ewan McGregor is the same age as Alec Guinness in A New Hope?" And he's probably gonna look a little younger because just the way
Life.
the world works right now.
Yep.
But then we'll be like, "All right, let's get that." Kenobi talking to Bo Sheck at the cantina the day before. Let's get that series. That's what I want. Kenobi season 3 will be that. All right, we've taken a look at the Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2 news. Dug a little deeper. Hope you enjoyed that. So stick around. On the other side, we got a video game. I'm so excited it's back. Had no idea it existed. Stick around for more ForceCenter. We are discussing Star Wars news. Joseph, Jen, me, Ken in our virtual studio. And this was truly, I think, like the only Star Wars like official news story this week. And I joked there, but it came out. Jedi Power Battles, the video game, it's returning. It's getting a remaster. This January, the video game Star Wars Episode 1, Jedi Power Battles will return 25 years after it was first released. Back in 2000, they're saying. Wow, that's 25 years. Okay. The classic platform and beat-em-up game is getting this re-release with some updates, including about 13 characters you can download and play. A corrected color for Mace Windu's lightsaber, and I think Adi Gallia, maybe Caddy Money, there's like 3 where you can now play with their correct colors, or you can choose to play with their incorrect colors as they appeared in the game back in 2000. So the first question, I tipped my hand, did we play this game? And will we play it now? So many games came out during that era, which some are celebrated. Some I did play. I had a system, but I was mostly playing Tony Hawk and Madden football at this time. I love the prequels. I was excited. For my roommates and I shared one system. It wasn't like now where I literally have 2 PS4s and a PS5 in this house because I'm just apparently a silver spoons Richie Rich kid. Back then it was a little different. I didn't know this game existed. So will I play it now? I might have to because I want to experience it. Joseph, you're gaming in 2000. Where does that
Yes, I played this game. My gaming history is spotty, but this one I was all over. Good Lord, did I play this game. So we can talk about the, Phantom Menace of it all, of the, I loved parts of it, but I had a lot of the similar critiques that people of our generation did. But I just kept being like, but I love Star Wars and I love Obi-Wan and lightsabers and Jedi. So anything that focused on the Jedi part of Phantom Menace, which is what I loved, I was all over. So it's like Jedi Power Battles. You're just running around as a Jedi and you get to play all these different Jedi. Because remember, like, this was really one of the exciting things, the prequels, is we didn't have a bunch of Jedi all at once with different colored lightsabers. And it's fine that they're doing the corrected version of the colors, but I think the colors in Jedi Power Battles matched the colors that the action figures came with, because it was Kiadi Mundi is an action figure who had a purple blade, and I believe Stas Ali had a red blade or an orange blade. But something in that general hue. It was so great. Anyway, I have a million memories of this game because I played the living hell out of it. I don't need to go on and on, but
I mean, we might need you because, Jen, I don't know. Did you play this game?
I did not know it existed. I never played it. However, when I watched the clip, I was like, now this is a game I could play right now. This is the type of game that I'm looking for. Force Unleashed? No, it was too complicated and difficult for me. The newest one that came out? No, I will screw myself with these missions. Too difficult. Side scroll, just whacking people with my lightsaber. That is what I need. And the graphics, simple. I don't need fancy graphics. This is a game I'm hoping to get a Nintendo Switch for Christmas. I don't know if I'll be able to. Maybe it might be next Christmas, but I want this game for myself.
This is exciting, and I absolutely think you're right, Jen. I love modern games. I spend too much time on them now. I wish I spent a little less time on them as I did in 2000. Didn't spend as much time on them. I'm going to eventually get Outlaws. Haven't had a chance to dive in. Have some issues with the gameplay. It's just puzzle games, everything. Not my favorite thing on the Jedi Survivor, Fallen Order games. They're fantastic, though, just in terms of, wow, look how beautiful these are. I looked at this and thought, oh, God, if I could get that on, like, my iPad, that is a great plane game on a flight back to New York. That means
I'm so curious to see how the actual gameplay works because it's a little bit it's more complicated than what
Really?
you guys are describing because
Okay.
it is not that much more. It's very specifically that era of video gaming. It was like it's early 3D. Um, and it's sort of the Star Wars meets Mortal Kombat model in terms of the control. So you wander around everywhere, and it isn't complicated in terms of like learn 18 different mechanics because now you're climbing on a rope or solve this puzzle or get lost on this map. It is simple in that way. But the main attraction to it is the reason they called it Jedi Power Battles is like be a Jedi, wander around and bleep up. Just, cut, jump here and cut that, jump here and cut that. And the main thing is that all of the different Jedi had different combo moves you could learn. Like, and these are like the old school kind of Mortal Kombat, like hit X twice and do a little hook. So you go down and left at the same time. And like one of the things I spent just an offensive amount of time doing is, there's that one moment in Phantom Menace where Obi-Wan cuts the battle droid behind his back with the lightsaber. And you could do that. And I would spend hours on Coruscant. They only had like 4 thugs. I think there was like an Aqualish and a Rodian and like two other, and they were just everywhere. And the Coruscant map was ridiculously large. So you just jump from rooftop to rooftop and kill the same 4 guys.
Yes.
But I would spend hours trying to line it up and do the combo right. So Obi-Wan could go boop and poke a Rodian from behind, if you will.
All right, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm going to play all these games. I'm in. I mean, yeah, okay. The fact that it's a little more complicated makes sense. It makes sense. All right.
Okay, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. Jen, we'll find our button mashing game.
Yeah.
On an airplane.
The Zelda one, it's so difficult for me. It's a lot. That's like puzzles and fighting, and it's just really hard.
Those damn puzzles. I'm just not that smart. I just hit a roadblock at any time. You're like, all right, Cal Kestis needs to use the Force to solve this crossword puzzle. God bless it. Can't do it.
Zelda is my favorite game franchise ever, but starting with the one before Tears of Kingdom, it was too much. It's like I gotta cook and my weapons break. At this point, it's just life. Too much. Yeah. And Jedi Power Battles, I think, is a little bit more of that. Do you want some escapism? Do you want the fantasy that you have a lightsaber and you get to use it on droids and Rodians? It is far more in that fantasy world.
Oh, love it. Look, a lot of people excited. Our ForceCenter Discord exploded with joy over this. And they were talking about all the games kind of inspired by this era, which is the next question here. One of the reasons I think The Phantom Menace found such a powerful place in many fans' hearts does have to do with many video games that were inspired by that movie and in the entire era, the prequel era. A long list of games that kind of came out during this time. That's why I'm joking. That's one of the reasons I think I didn't know this one specifically existed, because I remember going into a GameStop being like, oh, there's a lot of Star Wars options there, which is cool. So asking you, Jen, did Star Wars games then, or maybe at any point, factor into your own Star Wars journey and any favorites that you have?
The only one which I've mentioned several times is the Shadows of the Empire, Nintendo 64, 97. That to me was my Star Wars game I played for hours. It really just, you know what it was, is it made me feel cool. Like Star Wars now is like, yeah, I'm a gamer. And I was like, I can't describe it, but I felt a sense of pride that I was doing it. And it really felt immersive, which was funny when you look at it now, right? But like at the time, it was like, this is mind blowing. Like, this is what it feels like to fly. And like, it just was really, really fun. So,
yeah. Love that. Love that, Joseph. You've got a long history of these games, like we do. This era, did it? We all were in that similar spot in 1999. But what do these era games do?
Yeah, I think it did deepen my appreciation of the Phantom Menace. I think even with having some critiques and being surrounded by people who disliked it even more powerfully than I had qualms about it at the time, the video games helped create the community of it. I had friends who bought the special N64 that came with the Episode 1 Pod Racer game. And so I'd go over to his house every once in a while and play the racer game. And then, for me at that, period of time, I, as a young man having some ups and downs, getting my heart broken. And, it was really nice working super long hours at Kinko's and then kind of doing theater on the side. And it was really nice to come home and disappear into Star Wars. And the video game let me disappear into this fantasy world. And it opened up my heart to parts of Phantom Menace, that I was challenged by, and particularly some of the new characters and the new aesthetics. I've mentioned many times. I played the PS1, the video game of the movie where you play through the story, and it's ridiculously elaborate and all that. And then I played the Jedi Power Battles a ton as well. So those were the ones that I played a lot, and how they fit into my fandom at the time.
I wish I'd played them a little bit more. I might have gotten there a little sooner on the prequel era in terms of just falling in love with the Star Wars part of it. Because that's what much like the figures, the merchandise, it is taking it off the screen and putting it into the palm of your own hand. And that goes back for me, one of my all-time favorites, like probably shared, is that is the arcade game of the original Star Wars one with the horrible wire graphics, and it's so of its time. That just was. Yeah, you felt like, oh my God, I am in the story now. I am destroying the Death Star with these amazing graphics right here, and I'm dropping quarters in. And I think that's the feeling we were always kind of looking for. Shadows of the Empire had that vibe too. I didn't play it or love it as much, but that Hoth sequence, just that was the same vibe. Oh, I feel like I'm in it. That's what I'm looking forward to finally getting to Outlaws about. I just want to sit down and play Sabacc for a long time or have a drink at a bar. I don't even worried about story missing out right now on that. I just want to go fall in love with that world again. And that's I've talked about Battlefront 2, the original one, so many times of hearing Padme's ruminations play over Mustafar and thinking, all right, maybe I like this. Maybe there's a lot in here that I like because it's Star Wars. It's just a different Star Wars I didn't expect. And I think that's the power of it. I think even the re-releases or the newer versions of Battlefront in 2015 and 2017, Joseph, you and I spent a lot of time individually, hours of playing Battlefront, particularly 2. But with Iden Versio and the story and everything and the updates and, going to Scarif and crawling around and feeling like I'm on the beaches with the shore troopers, Crate and chasing a Volptus around Crate. It was just made me really feel in that era now too. So love all that. Yeah, Jen, how many quarters did you drop in at the arcade game?
Oh, not as many. But I know that you say that. I do remember there was a Star Wars game that I used to play. I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah, I understand the video game industry has moved on, and I'm sure there's a million reasons not to do narrative games. But man, would it be amazing if, they could play through the sequel trilogy, you switch back and forth between being Rey, Poe, Finn, maybe Kylo in one scene, Rose in one scene. Like, I do think that is a part of what the journey used to be to get people to fall in love even more with those worlds and to, relive the adventure.
Revenge of the Sith one was pretty cool, too. I did play that one. I had a friend who loved that game, too. So it was always on. Well, that kind of leads to our final question here. Final question today. Fun question. I feel like I'm on my old movie fights day. Category 3. Pitch a new Star Wars video game in a classic old school fashion. Something from the sequels, something from the classic trilogies. I don't know. I don't care. But just let's not worry about open world games. Let's not worry about all the big puzzles, Jen. Just what kind of game do you want on a smaller scale?
I want Mortal Kombat, Sith versus Jedi. I want Asajj Ventress versus Kilnaka. I want Darth Maul versus Master Soul. I want fatalities. I want babalities, because I think that would be hilarious. And I want Ludwig Göransson to do the music. I think that'd be so fun.
Love this. Love it. On board for that. I'll toss mine out here next. I looking backward, like to like 83. Give me an updated but smaller fashion game of defending Bright Tree Village as an Ewok warrior, where you have, do you set the ATSD traps? Do you put the logs down the hill? Do you lasso speeder bikes? You just and it's going to be pretty simple. You just top down view, look at it, kind of a strategy game. I'll take that. And then I used to love playing. This is maybe one of the reasons why I still love going to Las Vegas and slinging some slot machines. I'm not good at the card games, but like used to love playing early 2000s PC casino games where it's just a top view of a casino. You walk in and you can go play blackjack and not real money. I would love that for Canto Bight. Just the Canto Bight casino floor game.
That would be fabulous.
You know, get into some trouble there too. Maybe DJ can show up and get us in trouble. Joseph, take us home with your pitch for a video game in a classic form.
These are great pitches. Jennifer, there was this game called the Masters of Terrascasi, which was sort of Star Wars Mortal Kombat. Feelings will differ. I was so excited, and then I thought the gameplay was only okay. There was a Gamorrean, I believe, whose name was spelled H-O-R, so it was like, Hor has entered the battle. Like,
oh my God.
Intriguing choice, Masters of Terrascasi. I believe I'm remembering that all correctly. I love those old narrative games like that Phantom Menace one where you play through the story, or even some of those like the Super Nintendo ones. And I think that were the original trilogy. And one of the things that I liked about those is, you know, they couldn't just have, you know, conversation scenes, but they wanted to include everything from the narrative. So a lot of times, you know, a scene would be blown up into an action scene and it wasn't an action scene in the narrative.
Oh, right.
And that's always really fun to me. So to tie it all together, I would love a narrative video game of the first season of Kenobi. And it starts with a big knife fight at the Star Whale meat factory.
Wow. Wow.
Clink, 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 clink. Yeah, you just press
Like
X.
Exactly.
Clink, clink, clink. I love that. And then do you have to like also slice the meat accurately? And can you steal a piece before your boss catches you?
Oh, yeah. You have to crouch and sneak out with your meat for your Yopi.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Get attacked by Tuskens on the way, and you're like, I'm like 8 levels into this game, and we haven't started the actual story yet.
We're still dealing with whale meat here. Beautiful. Well, all these games, they're going to happen. There you go. If you're a video game developer out here, come on, sign us up. Let's do this. Fun discussion here. Thanks for playing along, friends. As always, we have a lot of fun diving deep into the news, taking a different angle with it. We hope you all enjoyed it out there. We are ForceCenter. You can find us on social media at ForceCenter Pod, like Joseph said up top. Blue Sky, Threads, kind of where we're highlighting right now. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. Instagram, YouTube. Subscribe here. Hit that notification bell. Leave a nice comment to help with engagement. Hey, podcast is available in a lot of spots. Just search, you'll find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. And Fourth Wall, if you're watching on YouTube, you can link down below. You can support us at patreon.com/ForceCenter. Follow me at Cat Napsok. Or go to our website, catnapsok.com for more. Jennifer.
I'm sorry. My 5-year-old is here. She was trying to be sneaky, but yes,
Yeah.
they can see you. You can find our adventures at Jennifer
See,
Landa.
I had the copy up, so I couldn't see. I figured it was something I did.
No, it was sudden blinking lights moving at the bottom of Jennifer's screen from some sort of fun electronic headwear.
I love that. It's
Or you
great.
can find me on TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138. Yeah.
There you go. Joseph, take us home. Where can they find you and support your film efforts as well?
Well, I apologize that there's nobody hiding behind me. That would be better.
Look, I was really hoping your dad would walk in with like a hammer. Are we gonna hammer that stuff today?
He was worried about it. It's like, okay, I'll leave you alone. Anyway, you can find me on all the social media at Joseph Scrimshaw. Thanks to people who have very kindly and generously supported the film I'm trying to make. It's called Dead Media. And if you'd like to help, you can give a one-time tax-deductible donation of any amount through this great organization called Film North, and information on that is on my website, josephscrimshaw.com.
There you go. That's it. So for everyone, including all the children in the world, we'll see you next time here on ForceCenter.